Once heard the Dalai Lama speaking in London, and he said, I want to teach you that non-violence is the highest path. But if you can't do non-violence, then at least don't tell anybody else not to be. What is the nature of a devotee? Here we see is one that loves everyone, that is kind to other living beings, that doesn't have enemies. Hanuman has no enemies. He just serves God. He wants to help. He wants to do the right thing. When Lakshman was sick, he immediately went to get the medicine, the Sanjeevani herb from the hills. When Sita was kidnapped, he leapt towards Lanka to try and help. Wherever he can help, he wanted to serve. But that unconditional love exists within each one of us. Ram Ram. Nice to see you all. Hope you've all had a good week. I can't believe it's been a week since we were last together. Okay. I hope everybody can see me okay. What are we talking about? Love. 4 weeks of love. Last week we had the amazing Dr. Nicholas Sutton join us, and I think we're just going to float around in love and explore the ideas of love in the Bhagavad Gita for the next few weeks. And just before we go into the Gita, I just bear witness together with you all to the suffering that's taking place in Gaza. 70,000 children, women, men, innocent beings, perhaps some that are not innocent as well, but thousands of people are losing their lives. And for us at Godharmic and the work that we do, it's uniquely relevant, close to that suffering, and to do all we can to kind of raise awareness, um, whilst being non-political. This is a uniquely political situation because it's not lack of food that's causing the situation. There's religion and politics that's creating the situation. And so, what can we do? The first thing we can do is to open our heart, at least witness it, that it is recognizing it, and realize that that is actually taking place. And then another easy step is to advocate for peace and non-violence wherever we can. So I will always try with everything we do to try and relate it to the real world, and that goes on around us. And we've been writing letters um, to MPs as well as wider afield to leaders of states to try to kind of convey a message of non-violence and love and compassion, even if it falls on deaf ears. It's important that we do that. In fact, it's probably more important that we do it, and at least convey our message of love all, feed all, serve all, and speak for peace and love. So if anybody does want to get involved in being more actively engaged in that way, to help us send more peace letters, to send more requests, and perhaps to get more of us engaged in how we can be active voices for peace at Godharmic. That's something that we're looking to increase. A lot of people are feeling helpless, but there is not complete helplessness. There is something we can do. We can at least take a pen and write a letter, or we can type a letter to somebody to try and increase peace as a peace army. Okay, let's go into Gita. Let's explore together. Thank you all for being here. This is really one of the great highlights this week, and being with you all is a great honor and uh, pleasure. I did have one request that, for those of you who can, towards the end, I would really very much like to hear from more of you. So some of you have been since the beginning, last 6 months we've been together. And I would love to hear from some of you about what we're exploring here. So if it's okay, you can tell me to go away, but I might just call out a few names that I've seen regularly towards the end, just to hear some of your voice and your thoughts about what we're going through together here in the Gita and how it's reflecting, if anything at all. There may be nothing. Um, we're in chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga. Larry Brilliant. Has anybody heard the name Larry Brilliant before? Has that come up for many? Few people have. Okay. Few people know about. So Larry Brilliant was a great devotee of Neem Karoli Baba, and he worked on the eradication of smallpox, which has killed more people than perhaps all of the wars that have ever taken place. And that Larry Brilliant of bhakti and seva coming together, love, devotion, and then social service, seeing God in all beings and reducing suffering. And Maharaji uh, asked him to do that work, Guru's orders, if you like, but also he said that smallpox would be eradicated as a gift from God to all of the sincere efforts of the healthcare workers. It was extraordinary words, but I almost feel that that idea that we were talking about last week of grace and effort coming together in unison. So if we want peace, we have to work for peace. When Larry was about his time with Maharaji, he said in this book, um, "Be Love Now." Ram Dass quotes Larry. It's very much a book about bhakti. He said, "How do I explain who Maharaji was and how he did what he did? I don't have any explanation. Maybe it was his love of God. I can't even explain who he was. I can almost begin to understand how he loved everybody. I mean, that was his job. He was a saint. Saints are supposed to love everyone. But that's not what always staggered me. Not that he loved everybody, but that when I was sitting in front of him, I loved everybody. That was the hardest thing for me to understand. How he could so totally transform the spirit of people who were there with him and bring out not just the best in us, but that something that wasn't even in us that we didn't know. I don't think any of us were ever as good or as pure or as loving in our whole lives as we were when we were of Maharaji. Once many years ago, maybe a decade ago, sitting in Kenchi Dam in front of Maharaji's tucket, which is like a bed where he used to lay on. And it's a place where a lot of people sit in front of Neem Karoli Baba's tucket and uh, meditate or say prayers, recite the name, sing Hanuman Chalisa. They'll do some sadhana in front of that tucket or that special space. And we were in the hills for around 3 weeks that year. And as I was just about to leave on the last day, I just wanted to say a special goodbye to Maharaji. Something in my heart, like just wanted to kind of sitting there still meditating. But as I was about to leave, I was reciting Ram Nam. I felt, let me kiss bottom of the leg of the stool, like this, that little black thing that you get at the bottom of a table to stop it from grinding against the floor. That tiny thing that I don't even know what it's called. I just wanted to kiss that and say goodbye, Maharaji, I'm leaving. And it was just something just from the heart, like it was my way of wanting to do that. Nowadays, you can't get close to it, of course, with the thousands of devotees flowing through that place. It's no longer as quiet as it was um, a decade ago, or maybe more, 15 years ago. And as I went to do that, I bent down, I kissed the bottom of the leg, and then I just exploded into tears. And it was like I was wailing like a child for the first time in my life, like a crying baby, just crying. But it wasn't pain, it wasn't sadness, it was tears of electricity, tears of love. And it's the only I can't describe in words how that fulfillment, that fullness, purna, as the Isha Upanishad, you feel that fullness. And as I was there, I was crying very loud, in front of Maharaj's Thakur like this. And people were just walking around behind me. I could sense that like people were just walking around and they just didn't care. They were just like, there's another one, you know. And it was just like it was another day at the coffee shop for them. Uh, and I saw from the right hand side Prema, one of Maharaj's great devotees who lived in the hills for many, many, many years. From New York, she was. Um, just walking past normally, and everybody else was just congregated by the gate, ready to leave. They'd put their shoes on, they washed their hands, took some prasad, and they were ready to leave the ashram. And I was just there, like this, and that was a little goodbye from Maharaji. I felt like that was a little goodbye, like, thanks for coming to see me. You felt some uh energetic love from that. But you know, said in this book, Be Love Now, that the first time you experience unconditional love as an adult, it may be as a gentle here, or it might be more cataclysmic, like a giant earthquake that shakes your inner core. You are falling in love, but the act of receiving love that intense and all-encompassing change conception of yourself. You can't swim in such a vast ocean and remain entirely in the small pond of your limited self. That example there is Gita. For one who has, why do you need small ponds when you have the ocean? And I think all of the desires of life are, are the enjoyment of these small ponds of water. Whereas what we are practicing here is being, you are falling in love. But that act of receiving love that intense changes your conception of yourself. You can't swim in such a vast ocean and remain entirely in a small pond of your limited self. Even if that opening is just for an instant, even if it goes away and is apparently forgotten, that moment of realization or of heart opening colors the rest of a lifetime. There is no going back. The lingering taste of that goodness remains and won't be denied. Jesus used the metaphor of a fisherman. When you first feel the depth of joy, you are caught in the net of pure love by the divine fisherman. You're hooked on that love. My guru is like a fisherman. The ego twists and pulls and runs away, the line trying to escape. But each time the hook of divine love sets more deeply until finally the little you, the personality, and all its habits, the bundle of thoughts and desires, surrenders to the greater self, that being of pure love and consciousness that keeps pulling you in to merge. When I first got to India, I abhorred the idea of gurus. I was attracted to Buddhism, which appealed to the psychologist in me. How did I end up sitting in front of a Hindu guru? When I first met him, I hardly knew what I was doing there myself. But when Maharaji immersed me in his unconditional love, it altered the course of my life. My view of myself completely changed. That meeting opened my heart. In that moment, I opened up to the Guru, not just to the old man in the blanket sitting in front of me, but to the place within him reflected my true self. That spiritual self is the source of unconditional love. Now you can see why this short chapter requires 4 weeks to explore, because we can't even really talk about it, because it's hidden in the cave of our hearts. But we can move around it like honeybees. We can float and we can get close to it. And in coming together, being in the presence of our own hearts, remembering God's name, I think little by little, it all moves in that direction. And Ram Dass said something, you know, a single moment is it, it can change everything. And for me, it's kind of that example of being on a train and even run to the end of the train's still going towards us. So ultimately, we're all moving back, back home, back to God, back to Ram. But sometimes we run to the back of the train. Sometimes we hide in the toilet. Sometimes we can stand up and wait in the hallway. But ultimately, the train is moving in that direction. Sometimes we need a break, we need a pause, but ultimately the train's going there. Every train leads to Ram. I'm just going to go back slightly into the Gita, back to the beginning, where we ask the question, Arjuna asks the question, or we ask the question, which path is better? Is it the path of understanding one's spiritual consciousness, understanding Brahman, the self? Is it through knowledge? Is it through awareness that we should approach God, or which path is better? Specifically, which path is better? That's the question. I think Chapaksharam Abhyaktam Tesham Yoga Vittam. Yeah. Which path is better? Evam satata yukta ye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapaksharam avyaktam tesanke yoga vittamaha. And Krishna is very clear in the following verses that both paths are good. You can reach God through any means, but but bhakti is just easier. It's medicine with sugary syrup, much easier to take. Um, and I think I agree with that. You know, sitting in meditation, yes, important practice, must do dhyan, but the sweetness of bhakti, of kirtan, of reciting the name with love, um, I just find it so easy to enter into. Um, and and then all of this whole path of bhakti is a whole system really. Like there's so many systems. There's a wonderful text actually called Narada's Bhakti Sutras, which perhaps I'll touch on. But it Narada's Bhakti Sutras really systematizes these various elements of how we should practice loving devotion in our lives. O Arjuna, for those who have dedicated their actions to me, who meditate on me with undivided attention, and whose minds dwell on me, for them I become a swift deliverer from the ocean of repeated birth and death. Ye tu sarvani karmani mayi sanyasya matparaha ananyaneva yogena mam dhyayanti upasate तेषामहं समुद्धार्ता मृत्यु संसार सागरात् भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेश चेतसाम्. Very profound verses. I was just by the sea recently. This last weekend, myself and Lakshman were on a bit of a Dharma yatra. So on Friday, drove to Edinburgh. We did visited meeting on Saturday at the Glasgow Mandir, then visited a beautiful new project called the Mother Earth Temple in Glasgow, trying to show that the earth is the goddess, and they have this beautiful project that they're developing there. And then we went to have dinner with lots of Godharmic volunteers. Lovely, lovely, beautiful. You see this, I call them the courageous Dharma ladies of Scotland, and they're all this 60 plus community of Scottish ladies that come out every week, and they 2 or 3 times a week go and do food distribution for the homeless, for people that they don't know, that never met before, but they just go out, and they've been doing it for 5 years and have distributed more than 2 million meals together, reducing food waste and serving their local community. Just the most extraordinary group of people. Dinner. It's a kind of an annual thing where we work together and do that. It was really profound. Then went to Edinburgh to give a talk there. But as you're driving around Scotland, and as I traveled then towards the northeast, the northeast towards Newcastle, the ocean is all along the left side of the road as you're driving there. And I was thinking of these verses in the Gita, and I was just thinking, Mrityu Samsara Sagar, like this ocean of life and suffering and struggle and difficulty and things that go right and things that go wrong and feelings and emotions and all of this stuff is an ocean. And Krishna's saying here in these verses that indeed there is a ocean of suffering there, but I am the thing that the one that can deliver you from that ocean. Mrityu samsara sagarat. Samsara, the word is used commonly used in Buddhism as well, um, and describing it as an ocean. Like there is an ocean out there, and many times we feel that there isn't an ocean of suffering, or that everything is fine. So if you see something that goes wrong in our lives or in somebody else's life, there's an element of surprise. Oh my God, that's happened. Oh, that's terrible. But almost it actually feels a little bit illogical because it's very likely that things are going to go wrong in our life. In fact, it's absolutely guaranteed that all of us will die. All of us will struggle. All of us will probably fall sick at some point. All of us will lose loved ones far too early. All of these things will happen. Mrityu samsara is how do we have that ability to hold strong through the suffering in difficult times, whilst accepting that it's true, not denying it, like actually being present with it, feeling it, realizing it. But then, uh, and it's through love. O Arjuna, for those who have dedicated their actions to me with undivided attention, whose minds dwell upon me, for them I become a swift deliverer from the ocean of repeated birth and death. Fix your mind on me alone. Direct your intelligence towards me. Then you will dwell in me. Of this there is no doubt. Then you will dwell in me. O Dhananjaya, if you are unable to fix your mind on me steadily, then seek to attain me by the practice of yoga, Abhyasa Yoga. Now, Abhyasa is practice or to practice that thing, but it's interpreted in many different ways. Like what these verses actually Krishna is trying to say, there's an openness to it. So Shankaracharya might understand it differently. For me, I feel saying that love is the highest. But if you can't do love, then try some of these other practices. That's where what I essence, because he goes on to say, if how so he says, uh, dedicate everything to me with love in verse 8. Then in verse 9 he says, if you are unable to fix your mind steadily on me, then seek to attain me by the practice of yoga. If you are unable to practice yoga, then dedicate your actions to me. By acting for my sake, you will attain perfection. If you're unable even to do this, then try to renounce the results of actions and thereby becoming self-controlled. So if you can't follow the path of bhakti, then take up the path of the unmanifest, or that meditation practice. And if you're unable to do meditation, then just don't have selfish intentions about the work that you're doing. Reduce that element, so the karmic load is not being built up. That's the third kind of request. But knowledge is better than practice. Better than knowledge is meditation. Better, better still is the renunciation of the fruits of action, for renunciation leads directly to peace. I almost feel that these verses. I once heard the Dalai Lama speaking in London, and he said, I want to teach you that non-violence is the highest path. But if you can't do non-violence, then at least don't tell anybody else not to be non-violent. Don't try to keep going for so. But I feel we have here in the Gita centrally placed, chapter 12, that love is the highest. Very, very powerfully put here. The yogi who is without hostility, who is friendly and compassionate to all creatures, who lives without a sense of ownership or ego, who is equal in pain and pleasure, who is patient, ever satisfied, ever self-controlled, whose resolve is firm, and whose intellect and mind are dedicated to me, to Krishna. Such a person is my devotee and is dear to me. Advesta sarva bhutanam maitraha karuna evacha. Maitra is friendship, who's friendly. So Advesta sarva bhutanam. Sarva bhutanam is one of my favorite sayings, phrases in the Gita. It's all living beings. Advesta, not objecting to any living being. Maitraha, friendly. Karuna, evacha. Nirmamo, nirankaraha, without ego. Samadukha sukha kshyami, equiminded, to try to be balanced in all given situations. This is what Krishna is describing as the um, the type of person that we would love to become. This is the goal, to be like this, without hostility, friendship. I can't remember if it was Cliff last week or somebody saying about the missionary who spoke to Gandhi, and it was quite. Actually, it was in my mind. It's the missionary said to him, "Oh, I don't like your well, your religion is not as good as Christianity because in Christianity we're taught to love our enemies." So I heard this over the last week. Forgive me if it wasn't Cliff who raised it, but it was a nice one. And then Gandhi's response was, "Well, yeah, that's very good, but I've been taught in my religion not to have any enemies." So it's kind of playing with words. They both mean the same thing ultimately, but it was an interesting little example of not to have any enemies. Ajata Shatru Seveta Esha Dharma Sanatanaha. Ajata Shatru, his very name means the one without enemies, without hostility, friendly to all. Karuna means compassion. Evacha. Nirmamo Nirankaraha. Aranka, uh, Arankaraha means like the egotistic, like not being egotistical. Duryodhana is wicked. He always has a strong ego. Everything upsets him so easily. But he's a very talented warrior. But Arjuna, on the other hand, is without the ego that he has. Samadukkhakshami. In these verses, I think there's like a lot of values that are being described in these 13 and 14 verses. And many of them are the Godharmic values that we hold uh, um, very, very closely in the organization. Love, friendship, compassion, truth, kindness, charity. So, santusta, satatam yogi, peaceful, self-controlled, whose intellect and mind are dedicated to me. Such a person is my devotee and is dear to me. One who neither creates fear in the world nor shrinks from the world, who is free from worldly happiness, jealousy, anxiety, and agitation is dear to me. I really feel that these ideas of these values which are here, which are listed multiple times in the Gita. I mean, Nick spoke about chapter 16 in that list here, but here it's not it's not speaking about these human values in the perspective of goodness or godliness, um, and demonic virtues, which is referred to in chapter 16. Here in chapter 12, he's talking about someone who loves God, like a devotee. And often we'll find that faith is tied to belief, that these people believe something. And that doesn't necessarily mean good or bad people. Like love should extend out. What is the nature of a devotee? Here we see is one that loves everyone, that is kind to other living beings, that doesn't have enemies, who's friendly and compassionate to all creatures, who operates without ownership or ego, who's equal in pain and pleasure. I really feel here that he's not, nowhere does he say that if you just believe in me alone, then everything is done. That's all taken care of. You have to be a good person. You have to be kind and compassionate. Otherwise, the other stuff doesn't matter. So, um, if it doesn't transform your acceptance of other living beings or the effect on the world, then really the bhakti is missed. The point is missed. the objective. I mean, it's not pleasing to God. It wouldn't be pleasing to God. And then I feel that's the example in the Ramayana is Hanuman. If you want to see how he operates, how a bhakta operates, Hanuman has no enemies. He just serves God. He wants to help. He wants to do the right thing. And when Lakshman was sick, he immediately went to get the medicine, the Sanjeevani herb from the hills. When Sita was kidnapped, he leapt towards Lanka to try and help. Wherever he can help, he wanted to serve. And he just loves Ram to the point where, uh, for me, Hanuman's flow and Ram become one. In fact, in the Ramayana, there's a moment where Hanuman is on bended knee to Ram prayer. There's a very famous picture of Hanuman on bended knee to Ram, but even Ram can't pick him up. Such is the devotee's love that I want to stay on bended knee. I want to be serving. Because once I stand up and I'm one with you, then I will lose that state of longing and love that I want to constantly be in. I want to remain in love, remain in service. I, one who neither creates fear in this world nor shrinks from the world, who is free from worldly happiness, jealousy, anxiety, and agitation is dear to me. For me, Maharaji is unconditional love. Now, there was a being, but that unconditional love exists within each one of us, and that is God. And how we open ourselves to the realization of God, yes, through sadhana, through practice, reciting the name of Ram, continuously being in the mode of love and devotion, offering all of our acts. There is that spiritual practice side. Like tomorrow morning, I'm having a Hanumanji's Havan. So we have a fire sacrifice and offering all of the offerings into Agni, reciting Hanuman Chalisas and lots of prayers. And then following that, reading Sundarkand, hour and a half, 2 hours of reading all of the Ramayana. For that, that's all offering, to practicing sadhana, doing arti. Um, yes, important. But on the other hand, more emphasis is given on being a good human being in the Gita. You can see all of these verses. Krishna hasn't really spoken much here about puja and performing rituals. So yes, it is there and it's important, but it's not the most important. The most important are the human values that we see like pouring through. That's the foundation. Once I was with Dr. Nicholas Sutton and I asked him, what is it all about? Like, what's the essence? You've read all of this Mahabharata. You've studied PhD on the Mahabharata. A great study of all this stuff. What's the essence? Give me the main teaching. What's the message here? And he said, be a good human being. Be a good human being. And then I was in Rishikesh around 18 years ago with Krishna Das. And we were sitting on the steps. Siddhi Ma was sitting upstairs. She was like, talking at that time. It was a really precious time. And I was on the steps of the temple with him. We were just sitting on the outside, just having a chat. And I asked him the same question. You've been with Maharaji. You lived with him. You recite the name. You've been doing this for now 50 years, however long it's been. What's this all about? What's the essence of the path? What's the the thing really about? And he said, be kind to those around you and be a good human being. So it's really funny that, like, from an academic perspective, the study of the Mahabharata and the Gita and exploring Sanskrit Shastra and text, Dr. Nicholas Sutton from that side, and then from the lineage of Neem Karoli Baba and studying, being with Krishna Das and living what we lived with Maharaji and Ram Das and all of that, they both come to the same conclusion that Dharma is living out the best of what it means to be a good human being. And if the dharma of sugar is to be sweet, then the dharma of humanity is to be humane and to be loving and to live out that. So I think if that's our highest ideal, even above of trying to reach God, try to reach good, and then God will come to us through that goodness. That's the essence what I feel. But yeah, practice is all important, but um, I think the practice without humanity is useless. You know, if you're rude to people, you're horrible to people, and mean to people while you're doing uh, the spiritual practice, then it doesn't count. And I think just finally, the one thing I'll share is that Maharaji said everyone who comes to the ashram must take prasad. You know, he wanted people to feel like they were coming home or they were visiting their grandfather. And so I think that that was really special and beautiful. I'll pause there. But also, if any of you are local and you want to join for Hanuman Havan tomorrow morning, you're very welcome to come to my home and we can recite the Sundarkan together. But you have to come here early, 8 a.m. Love you all. Take care. Let's be in touch soon. Have a good week, everyone. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. Much love. Bye bye.